to another edition of Doorstep History here on Big Centre TV. Today we have some great stories from Norman Bartlam and the TNT team from across Birmingham and Smethwick, as well as Mike Prince's meeting with photographer Pogus Caesar. So, without further ado, here's Norman taking a look at the Black Patch in Smethwick, the birthplace of one of the world's most loved silent film stars.
Who better to unveil the monument than Michael Chaplin, the son of Charlie Chaplin, a man who is known to have Romany connections. In recent years there's been much speculation that Charlie was born on Black Patch. This came about when a letter was found in a locked drawer belonging to Chaplin. Part of the letter tells Charlie that he was born in a caravan. The letter says it was a good one and it belonged to the Gypsy Queen who was my auntie, and you were born on Black Patch in Smethwick near Birmingham, and so was I. Many of the Romanis that have met up here at this pub have no doubt at all about the Chaplin connection.
Charlie Chaplin's mother was Hill, her name was Hill, and she was on her way up north and she's having the baby. And she called in this camp because she knew what it was, and she was in my great-granny Smith's caravan, and she had the baby. That's where it's all come from.
Michael said he hadn't known about the Black Patch connection, but he had heard his dad speak of his gypsy heritage.
Until this letter was revealed from that locked drawer, were you aware of the Black Patch connection?
Not at all, no, I wasn't. My father always told us, you know, we had gypsy blood, but he never really went into details. I think maybe he didn't talk about it at the start of his career, but in the 30s he used to boast about it. He used to read ladies' hands at parties and say, you know, I've got gypsy blood, and he talked about the journalist. There's cuttings where he's asked if why he didn't become American, and he says, well, I was born English and I'll die an Englishman, but if you want to know what I really am, I'm a gypsy. So he was quite open about it then.
We have a group now called the Birmingham Romany Memorial Review, and all the members here are, a lot of the members here are the descendants from the original gypsies, the Romany gypsies that was on the Black Patch.
It's no coincidence that today was chosen for the date of the unveiling of the memorial, because it was exactly 110 years ago today that the Romanis were evicted from Black Patch Park.
This is a picture of the Black Patch Park where we are now, years ago, before we was kicked off to make a normal park, and they kicked us off and give us houses in Winton Green.
Some of these
yes, this is my Uncle Lynn. Once she's gone your round of hop picking, fruit picking, and done your circuits, you went back to, you hadn't got somewhere to go and rest your place, you was finished.
So basically that you're touring around in the summer.
We all ran a farm, fruit picking. As the season started, we went round fruit picking and whatever. When we came back, we stopped here till season starts again.
So during the winter time then, when you were on Black Patch, what kind of things did they do?
Well, just hawking, knocking doors and telling fortunes. The women and the men picked up wire work wherever they could, like I do now, to be honest, you know.
It did start off as a winter quarter, but after a while it became a permanent site.
Right,
where they lived permanently.
As a permanent site, yes, yeah.
That's the bender which the gypsies used to live in. They had benders. They wanted to be complete.
It's just hazel sticks with a lock of cloth over
which they could carry on the backs, and then they moved into Vardos. Next, you can see in the picture.
Vardo.
That's bender, Vardo.
Vardo, it's caravans of Vardo.
Most of the teenage lads never went into the caravans that were preserved for the adults, and the lads lived under the edges. My dad used to say, God help the poor kids under the edges to die when it rained.
Well, there was no room for them.
Really? So the kids just slept out?
You know, once they get to an adult sort of age, 14, 15, 16, they had to cope for themselves the best they could. If they got into a bender, fair enough, but the rest, they slept under the edges.
They had to grow up very quick.
At a rain-soaked Black Patch Park, an enthusiastic but damp crowd watched the unveiling ceremony.
I think it's wonderful to do something in memory of the gypsies.
It's the ancestral home of the Romanies. That's what it's all about.
And no doubt the kid and his ancestors would agree.
Great stuff about Charlie Chaplin there. I never would have guessed that he was born on the black patched Romany gypsies. Now, next up is the TNT team taking a look at Ypres in Belgium and the connection between the Belgian town and Birmingham, which was made by Midland pilots back in World War I, fighting in the skies for a free Europe.
Our studio is here, in the middle of Ypres in Belgium.
At the Oratory Church in Ladywood, there is a large plaque to commemorate a First World War hero, Major Francis Fitzgerald Waldron. He was a pupil at the Oratory School, a boarding school next to the church.
Now it's our task to find out what happened to him.
Now for a little bit of research.
Mouth Wargrave Cemetery website says that he was buried in
Ukos St. Main.
Where is it? Where are we?
But actually, wait, it'll take us ages to get to there.
And don't forget the plaque that says Epinoy.
What's he look like? There he is. That's what he looks like. There's our man. Freddie Waldron. This picture actually shows us is quite interesting because he crash landed behind German lines and the Germans partly reconstructed his plane. This is the famous picture which was taken in 1914 at Montrose, which is where the squadron was based before the war. And this man in the top corner is Harvey Kelly. He's the man that landed first. And Waldron is this man down here, look. Sitting next to the really big man, who was a man called Burke, who was in charge of the squadron.
100 years ago to this very day, planes like this landed here. One of these pilots was Francis Fitzgerald Waldron. Some records say he was first to take off from England.
As fire tiger moths from the rear seat. That's because when they were used as trainers, when the instructor got out, it didn't change the centre of gravity, and the pupil was then used to flying in the back.
You made our overpass, turned around and came back and landed into wind. Lovely piece of grass here, and the wind is very calm after yesterday when it was quite a rough old day.
It's amazing how fragile this is. It's just wood and fabric, and it could easily get torn to pieces.
The normal cruising speed is 80 miles per hour, 72 knots. The maximum speed is 139, right? So if you pull the stick back to get the nose up.
Isn't it amazing that 100 years ago, a man from Ladywood ended up on this very spot? On the day he was killed, Francis Fitzgerald Waldron flew over this village in this direction.
As he flew over, his plane crash-landed in the fields over there.
He was picked up by the Germans and taken to a village called Epinoy, which you can see in the distance.
Sadly, Waldron died of his injuries, and the Germans buried him next to this church. This is the church that's on the plaque.
We now know that he was dug up and taken to a Commonwealth Wargrave Cemetery, which is a few miles away. Let's go.
It's here, this is it.
Now we've finally arrived at the cemetery. Now all we've got to do is find out where his grave is.
W8A26.
It's been a long day, but at last we found his grave.
Thank you, Francis, for all your effort for saving our country.
Isn't it amazing that someone from our school could achieve something like this?
Major Francis Fitzgerald Waldron, 19th Hussars, Royal Flying Corps, 3rd July 1916, aged 29.
Another interesting piece from the TNT team that makes you think about the scale of World War I and the effect it had on the lives across the world, including right here in the Midlands. Well, we're about to take a quick break now, but join me in a couple of minutes when we shall be looking at a great day out once upon a time at Edgbaston Reservoir. Welcome back to Doorstep History here on Big Centre TV with me, Tom Wilkinson. Now, we have Norman Bartlam taking a look at the Edgbaston Reservoir and a special event that was held there which saw the reservoir transformed into a small-scale replica of Blackpool so the people of Birmingham could have their own day out at the beach.
Since the railways reached the coast in the late Victorian times, seaside towns have seen regular invasions of visitors from the West Midlands. These donkey rides at Weston have been run by the same family since 1886. Some traditions just don't change. Back in the depressed 1930s, few families could afford to travel to the traditional holiday venues such as Rhyl, Weston and Blackpool. So the powers that be decided to bring the seaside to the city. For 6 days in August in 1932, Birmingham held Blackpool Week at Edgbaston Reservoir. Rummies had the chance to sample the delights of the Lancashire resort in miniature. Well, it wasn't quite in miniature because a huge tower was built to replicate the famous Blackpool Tower, and since then the ballroom at the reservoir has been known as the Tower Ballroom. It was built of a revolutionary invention of Buckley's patent universal tubular scaffolding, and the enormous task became ridiculously simple. Apparently, it was built by Messrs Buckley's Limited of the Bolton Tube Mills in Downing Street in Handsworth. The press added, the Lockey Tower is built entirely of cold-drawn weldless steel tubing, many hundreds of yards in length, and it only took a few days for its erection. The official programme says that visitors to Birmingham's Blackpool Week will find it instructive and entertaining to scrutinise the Lockey Tower, and the visitor who can correctly estimate its height will receive a cheque for £25 from the builders. Mr. Frank Wilson, the genial and well-known amusement caterer of Redditch, offered Coney Island, entirely under his own management, with the latest rides and amusements. Plus there was one added attraction, which they say should not be missed. It's Sarah, the girl with the X-ray eyes, on Casino Beach. Orchestra leader Van der Ven was there to personally conduct his famous gypsy band, with performances at 3:30 and 7:30. You could always, though, just bathe on the shore and wear the latest cooperative bathing costumes, the smartest new styles, all wool new costumes in plain shades for 4 and 6pence, fancy designs and stripes for 10 and 6. Then why not go and meet Vera, the radium girl? Mustn't miss this mystery. Other performers included Fred Klein, famous for his work of No No Nanette, the Rio Sisters, Miss Constant Lake, a soprano who is one of our favourite principal boys, and Tom Wood, who it said would surprise and please with his saxophone. Undoubtedly, though, the star attraction seemed to be Bert Powsey. He dived from the dam at 3 o'clock and 5:30 every day, and made a leap for his life at 10:15 from the tower on the south shore. The programme says he is not content with just high diving. Such a performance would no doubt seem tame to him. He dives from an 80-foot tower, tied up in a sack, Oh, and I forgot to tell you, it's also set on fire before it leaps. And just to add a little more excitement to this particular feat, he dived not into the reservoir, but into a blazing cauldron, which was only 4 feet deep. The local press was impressed by everything that was going on. All the fairy lights, the coconuts, the dodgem cars and the roundabouts. And there never was such a carnival in Birmingham. The fun went on till midnight. The darkness and the magic of 20,000 lamps brought enchantment to the place. The reservoir was a girdle of coloured lights. Its sombre background of the factory stacks was gone, and only the trees were there behind the vivid pyramids and the slashes of electric lights, where music and laughter of thousands made the night merry. The public certainly liked it too, with attendances averaging over 40,000 people per day. And the success of it was so great that the organisers presented a cheque of £1,000 to the Birmingham Children's Hospital.
Thanks to Norman there, I can only imagine how impressive it must have been to see it all firsthand, though I don't envy the man jumping into the cauldron. Now, next up we have Mike Prince's interview with Pogus Caesar, talking to the photographer a little about some of the iconic photographs he has snapped throughout his career.
My guest on this edition of Life Stories is an award-winning filmmaker and photographer who arrived in Birmingham at the age of 5, having been born on the island of St Kitts in the Caribbean. As a photographer of over 30 years, Pogus Caesar has documented major events throughout the Midlands and is well known for his photographic records of Birmingham's Black history and the Handsworth riots. It's a very warm welcome to Life Stories to Pogus Caesar.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, indeed. Welcome, Pogus. So you came to Birmingham at the age of 5. May I ask you why your parents chose Birmingham? Did you have relations here?
There were relations who were here. You know, there's a tendency for, especially kind of West Indians, to come to a place where the other West Indians are. And of course, you know, there are very large rooming houses. You know, there were Irish families, there were families from Barbados.
But at school, you had your chums, you had your friends.
Of course.
And I know that that's where your artistic talent began to surface.
Yes.
And you drew cartoons of some of your friends.
Yes, I used to draw cartoons of friends and family on the back of old Christmas cards and old photographs. I mean, I'd find something a bit quirky about somebody. Somebody had big ears or, you know, like you know, shiny teeth or long fingers. You know, I'd draw the pictures, and of course people would laugh. And as you know, when people pay attention to your work, you go, hold on, you know, that's actually, you know, that's something, because, you know, the congratulations of it.
Then you took up a very specific, very particular type of art form with pointillism. Just tell us about that.
Pointillism. I was looking for something to do, but again, you never know what it is that you want to do. And I saw a documentary on a TV station, and it was about two artists, Pizarro and Seurat, and they both painted in dots. And I just became quite fascinated that they could build up these images with these tiny little dots, you know, like thousands and thousands of dots. So immediately I went, that's what I want to do.
So I know that this became a big part of your life, and you went to New York and you tried an exhibition, but it didn't work. And you moved on then to something which has been a big, big part of your life, which is photography. It's amazing how quickly this happened, and it was then in the mid-80s
yes.
that you photographed the Handsworth riots in Birmingham, and here's a picture on screen now of one of the incidents. In fact, this was you've told me, a crew car for Central Television. It was the news team going out to record the Handsworth riots, and I can see there's a pneumatic tape, television tape, to the left of that scene. I remember that story quite well, and you took that photograph and the rest with a very simple camera.
There's no secret about taking photographs. I think it's about right place, right time, and you know, important thing is to have an interesting subject. And because you're using film, remember, I've only got 36 frames. With digital, you can shoot hundreds and hundreds of frames, so you have to wait for what you think is the right shot.
Pogus, you capture situations and moods in a beautiful way.
Thank
so
you.
we'd like to wish you the very best in your future career and what's left to work on documentaries and TV. Thank you for telling us your life story.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you.
Great stuff there from Mike and Pogus. Now, unfortunately, that's about all we have time for this episode and this series, sadly. Though please join me in September in our new location at the Newman Brothers Coffin Works in Birmingham. In the meantime, if you have any stories about your family history or the history of your local area, then please don't hesitate to get in contact with me on Twitter @BigCenterTV, Facebook @BigCenterTV, or contact me on the email address history@bigcenter.tv. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon on Doorstep History.